to do a Q&A session. So I get a lot of questions sent into the DM. So every once in a while, I like to do an episode where we just answer questions. Remember, you can always send questions into at Kyle Hiersche or at Founding Without Funding. And then, of course, you can always drop questions here live because we do stream this live on all the different platforms. So feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat. But I have a good amount of questions here to answer. So we'll go through some of them here today. More than happy to answer everybody's questions if you want to send one in. Remember, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com to get the book if you want to get some help starting or growing your business. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into some questions here. I have a question from Jason. Jason says, Kyle, I've been sitting on a business idea for 2 years because I don't have investors. Am I overcomplicating this? Yes, absolutely. You're overcomplicating things if you're waiting for investors. Definitely need to get started right now, figure out the base of what you can do, the MVP, the minimal viable product, figure out what that is that you can do something to get something out there. Now, Jason, if you are dealing with something that's maybe like a product that you're going to have to spend a lot of money to, bring to life, and it's not something you can do at all without an investment, then I would work on, making some type of physical prototype or some type of thing that brings that to reality so that you can show investors and get somebody on board, because just showing people words on paper is very cheap, right? But if you can materialize it into something real, you have a much better chance getting an investment. But if your business isn't something that needs a giant capital injection just to create your product or service, then there's no reason you should be waiting. Just get something together, get it out there. Launched is better than finished, right? Just get it out there. Okay, question here from Alicia. If I only have $500, where would you put it in to start a real business? Well, I mean, about half of that is going to go to incorporating your business, right? Making a LLC or whatever it is. And then from there, I would spend the rest on building a website, and then any that's left over, I would spend on ads. And it's as simple as that, right? You need a company, you need a website to sell from, and then you need ads to sell what you're selling. Now, of course, taking a little further, eventually you're going to want to have a CRM, and you're going to want to have automated text and email set up and all that kind of good stuff. But at the start, let's just get something together and get it out there to the people and let the market tell us whether somebody is going to purchase it or not. All right. So this question is from Marcus. Marcus is asking, is it smarter to start a side hustle first or go all in from day one? So this is a great question that people often consider, and some people feel different ways than others. I'm sure some successful entrepreneurs could tell you something different than I believe. But I believe if you have a day job, then you should be hustling on your business until it makes as much as your day job, and then quit. So the whole going all in and not having a plan B and stuff, that is a great thing. And it's a huge motivator for some people. But if you already have a job, then you should just be working every hour you possibly can, every waking minute that's available on your business until you actually have revenue coming in. And then you can start working on it full time. And you just want to be in that position to where when you start working on it full time, it's actually going to increase income, right? You don't want to be in the position where you're saying, okay, I'm going to quit my job. There's no income coming in from this, but once I quit, I'm sure there'll be income coming in because I'm going to work 24/7 on it. You really want to be in the position where you say, okay, money's coming in, and I know that if this much money is coming in and I'm only spending 2 hours a day on it, if I quit my job and I'm spending 10 hours a day on it, then I know X amount of more money will come in. So I think that's the position that you want to be on. And again, this is if you already have a job. Now, if you don't already have a job, you're already all in, right? And so that is a good, if you don't have a backup plan, it is a good motivator. But like I said, if you already have a job, especially a good job, I would just spend, I think people underestimate how much free time they do have. Now, I know it's a little bit different if, you have a family, you have all kinds of stuff going on. But people have time to scroll on social media. They have time to watch Netflix. They have a lot of time where they could pack in the hours into running their business during that time, instead of just saying, I can't really go all in until I quit my job. That's a little bit, unrealistic sometimes, to just quit your job, jump into something that's not making money yet. And now, because you're spending some more time on it, all of a sudden it's making a bunch of money. It's usually not very realistic. Okay. The next question here is from Danielle. How do I know if I'm building a real business or just creating another job for myself? That is a great question, Danielle. How do you know if you're building a real business or just creating a job for yourself? This is the big conundrum for most entrepreneurs. And there is a great book about this. It's called Build a Business, Not a Job. I can't remember the authors off the top of my head. I believe it's David Finkel. Um, so Build a Business, Not a Job, a great book, and it absolutely changed my life. That book is how I was able to systemize everything in the business that we were already in and make it so that it wasn't a daily job, because that's what that book made me realize, that I wasn't an entrepreneur. I was an employee just at a company that I owned, but I was still an employee at the company. I just happened to own the company. And so that book really changed my outlook on everything and changed my life. And that book is what allowed me to take the steps needed to become an actual entrepreneur, which means leave that business running, right? Build it and systemize it to where it can run without me for the most part, and then be able to go on and create other ventures, other opportunities, other businesses. That's what being an entrepreneur truly is. And that book absolutely changed my life. And that's when I was able to pivot into real estate and all this other stuff, because it allowed me to say, okay, I can actually build a business that I can pretty much walk away from and then go build other businesses. So that is a big conundrum for a lot of business owners. And, I would recommend that book. It totally changed my life. Build a Business, Not a Job, because a lot of people are dealing with that exact situation there, Danielle, where they think they're building a business, but they're really just building themselves a job within a business. And they might happen to own that business, but it's still a job if the business can't run without you, especially like for a day. And this is huge, because as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as founders, most of the time our businesses can't go one day without us, especially in the early stages. But that book definitely helped change my perspective, and made me take the time to sit down and do the things that needed to be done, to systemize everything more, and to be able to hire people, to do the things and train them properly, instead of just going day to day of just doing it myself, right? You get caught in this trap of, it's easier to get it done than to train somebody else how to do it. And if you keep that up for long enough, you'll end up underwater saying, I'm doing every single thing in my company and I would pass this off, but it's easier for me to just do it. And you look at all the things you're doing and you say that, you're never going to get anywhere. And that's what I was doing, right? I was doing, well, it's harder to hire somebody for this and train them for this and all that kind of stuff than for me to just do it. But when you do that with enough tasks, you are literally creating a very stressful job for yourself within your company that you cannot get away from. So definitely recommend reading that book. Build a Business, Not a Job. Great book, changed my life, and I hope that it could change yours. Okay, the next question is from Trevor L. Should I wait until my credit score improves before trying to start something? No, absolutely not. You don't need to wait until your credit score improves to start a business. You don't need credit for a business, right? At all. I can't think of any reason why you're going to need credit for a business unless you're trying to take out a loan. And in that case, it's going to be basically a personal loan anyways, right? Because your business isn't going to have credit. So if you need to take out a personal loan, that might be a problem. But, here today, Founding Without Funding, we're talking about being able to do it without taking out a big loan or getting a big investor. So yeah, your credit has, nothing to do with your business like that. All right. Next question here is from Samantha. How do you deal with friends and family who don't take your business seriously? You don't. you just, if you have friends and family that don't take your business seriously, just don't worry about it. most entrepreneurs fail, most businesses fail. They know that. They're going based on that. They figure you're probably going to be one of the ones that fail, or one of the ones that quit before they succeed, which is the same thing, right? And so you can't blame them. Just keep doing your thing, and you'll prove them wrong and prove yourself right over time if you put in the work. Okay, the next question is from Brandon. What's the biggest mistake you see new entrepreneurs make when they're broke? A big mistake I see entrepreneurs make is spending money on things that don't matter when they're broke, like offices and branding, general branding, not ads. I mean, when you're broke, all you should be focused on is advertising to get new clients and converting those clients. That's it. It's as simple as that. When your back's against the wall, when you're broke, when you're not making sales, that's the solution, is to focus on getting clients, getting customers, and getting cash flow, not looking cool, not having a office where you think other people are going to solve your problems because you hired them and now they're magically going to, solve all your company's problems because they had a good resume. Whatever the case is, sponsoring an event or putting up a billboard, these things are not going to change the game for you. What's going to change the game for you is making sales. And that typically is going to mean advertising, getting people in, and converting them, doing whatever it takes to make that happen. Okay, question here from Kayla. Is social media still enough to build a business, or do I need paid ads? I think you need paid ads. So we talked about this actually on yesterday's episode, that if you're looking to get your brand out there and start making sales, there's really two things to do, right? And most of this is always online. And as far as online goes, there's two things to do. There's doing paid ads, or there's making content that goes viral. Now, making content that goes viral is awesome because you didn't have to pay for it. So if something does go viral, you get all kinds of conversions for free. But the key to remember is that it's not duplicatable, right? And it's not scalable. You don't know if something's going to go viral. You can't recreate that at will. And so ads are always good to make sure that if you can dial in your advertising budget and make sure that your cost of customer acquisition is low enough to keep going and to scale up, then it's a guaranteed thing. And you can do it over and over, and you can scale it up. So while you should be making content that hopefully goes viral, you should also have an ad campaign dialed in to where you have a conversion rate that's working for you, where you're still making a profit, and then you can scale it up. And you can rely on that. Your ads aren't going to go from $1 a lead to $10 a lead overnight. But a piece of content could go from getting you 10 sales a day because it went viral to then once it stops, once it hits a lot of plays and it stops going viral in the algorithm, it makes you zero. And so it's important to have ads running, I think. I mean, anybody who, listens to this show, watches this show, I'm a big proponent of ads. And it's mainly because of that reason, because there's all kinds of other things you can do to boost sales, temporarily. But ads are a constant thing, and they're a scalable thing, which is the most important part of it. All right, question here from, let's see, where were we? Sorry about that. Question from Kayla. Is social media still enough? Excuse me. That was the question we just went over. All right. If Eric's asking, if I don't have a website, can I still start selling? Well, that's tough, right? Where are you selling from? Now, of course, you could have, PayPal or QuickBooks or something to send people invoices, but how are they physically finding you, and how are they, actually getting the product or service? If you're running ads, where are you really running those ads to? I mean, you could run Facebook lead ads and just deal with them by, contacting them and then sending them invoices. But typically, you're going to want a page for them to land on once they submit for that lead ad. You're going to want an email to send to them with a website and stuff. So it's not that you can't start selling without a website. It's just that typically your business wouldn't really be conducive to that, depending on what kind of business you have. Now, I will say that making a website is super easy, right? There's all kinds of places that can do it for you for super cheap, or you can just do it yourself. We even talk about that in the book. So go to foundingwithoutfunding.com, get the book, and it talks a lot about how to do that. So I wouldn't worry. I think I wouldn't worry about not selling with a website. I would just get a website set up right away so that you can do everything, like every other business. Okay. Monica's asking, how do I price my services when I've never had a paying client before? So that's a great question. That's something that a lot of people have to experiment with. So obviously you want to set your price at what's going to be profitable for you. And remember, you want to set your price at what will be profitable for you, even with ad money, right? Whether it's an actual online ad or it's you hiring a salesperson or whatever, there has to be a built-in margin for the ad or marketing aspect to get the client, right? There has to be a built-in margin for the cost of acquiring the client. And then there needs to be margin on top of that for you to make a profit. So you want to look at that, and then you want to, price as low as possible. As long as those two things are in there, say, okay, if as long as I can get a customer for less than $5, I'll still make, $10 profit. And so I'd be able to scale that up if it works. So what I've always given as advice is map that out and then go with the cheapest price you possibly can to get started. Because what you want to do is see if the market responds to it and purchases it. Now, if they do, you can always raise the price later. But when you're first putting your product or service out there, you're just trying to see if somebody's actually interested in it enough to buy it. So you want the price low to be able to get that result as soon as possible. Right. And if the price is low and still nobody's doing it, then you really know that it's not going to work. If you come in with a super high price, you might think it's not working, but it's just because it's not enough of a value add for that price. But if it was half the price, maybe people would have been buying it by the dozens, right? So start low, try to get those results, because that's the goal, to get the result as soon as possible. Is somebody going to pull the trigger on this? Because let me tell you, it's happened in the past with me. You could advertise until you're blue in the face and spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and something just will not sell. So that's the result we're trying to get to as soon as possible. Is this going to sell at all or not? And the best way to get there as quick as possible is to have the lowest price you possibly can. And then obviously if you start selling, then you can start raising the price if you would like to. But you want that price low to just see if somebody will buy it at all or not. That is the key that we want to get to as soon as possible. We want to get to that conclusion. And that's going to tell us whether we should keep doing it, whether we should be adjusting, whether we should be pivoting, all that kind of good stuff. Okay. Derek is asking, at what point should I officially form an LLC, before or after I make money? I mean, an LLC is so cheap and easy to set up. I would just set up the LLC. Actually, we can do that for you at yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com. My team can actually set that up for you. If you go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com, we do have services to actually set up your LLC and, do everything, make your logo, your website and social media and all that kind of stuff if you want to be a little more hands-off with that process. So yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com, we can help you do that. But in general, I would just set up the LLC. It's very cheap and quick, and that way you can go get a business bank account, and then all the business you're doing from the start is all tracked and above the board. Okay, question from Lena or Lena. I'm not. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. So they are asking, what's the fastest way to get your first 10 customers without running ads? That's a tough question. I mean, that's why ads are so important, is because it's so much easier to get your first 10 customers. So that's a tricky question. I couldn't really tell you. I mean, to get your first 10 customers, you're going to have to talk to people. So if you're not running ads, you're essentially really going for your sphere, right? Friends and family, and working your sphere, right? I tell all the new loan officers and realtors that work at my companies that as soon as they're up and running and can do loans, or up and running and can list homes, that they should, call or text every single person in their phone that they've ever known and let them know, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm a loan officer. I can help you do X, Y, Z. Keep me in mind for the future. And make sure that that's the bare minimum of what you need to do. I can't tell you how many loan officers or realtors or just salespeople in general, are proceeding and trying to call leads and do other stuff when they haven't even done the bare minimum of letting everybody they know that they now can help them. Let me tell you, it's much easier to get somebody that you know to use you for your transaction than it is for somebody who doesn't know you at all. And keep in mind, those people that you're telling, ask them to send people to you. If you run into anybody looking for a house or whatever it is that you're selling, please give them my number, right? And those are great referrals because your friend or family is happy to refer you, and that person has been referred to you, so they feel like they have a connection to you. And they're not your friend or family themselves, so they don't feel as close to you, and so it's more of a professional business transaction. So I think it just amazes me how many people will go through this without actually doing that basic of, a lot of people just put a post on Facebook, one post, and say, hey, I'm a realtor now, use me for your transactions. That's not going to do it. Every single person you've ever known should know what you're doing at the very least. And it's also amazing to me how so many realtors or loan officers will be upset that their friends or family didn't use them for a transaction. And then when I ask them, well, did you call them and tell them that this is what you do now and how you can help them? And they said, no, but I did a post on my Facebook, so they should know. No. First off, Facebook doesn't show your post to everybody, right? It's just in the algorithm. Second off, they wouldn't remember that, right? And even if they did, that's all they saw of it. They wouldn't think that serious. When you call them and even text them, but specifically call them, they're going to feel obligated, right? They're going to go, well, he specifically told me that if I do buy a house to make sure I use him or her, and then they're going to kind of feel that obligation. And they specifically told me to refer people to them. You got to ask, right? What is the age old saying? Say, ask and you shall receive. Pretty simple formula, as Jim Rohn says, right? Ask. And so if you're not reaching out to everybody you've ever known, asking for their business, asking for referrals, then you can never be upset when they buy a house with someone else or do a refinance with someone else or whatever it is you're trying to do with them, right? Because you didn't do your job of letting every single person know. So to circle back there, kind of went off on a tangent there, but to circle back to your question there, Lena, I would say the fastest way to get your 10 customers, if you don't have money to advertise and you're not advertising, is work your sphere. Everyone you've ever known and have a contact of should know what you're doing and see if you can get some business from them. All right. A few more questions here. Tyrese is asking, how do you stay motivated when nothing is working yet? It's tough. Staying motivated when nothing is working is, I think, the hardest part about being an entrepreneur, because when something's working even a little bit, you have light at the end of the tunnel. But when something's not working at all and there's zero sales coming in, you're in this position of, okay, I'm going to keep trying. You're also in this position of, I need to adjust things. You're in this position of, well, I've adjusted things and it's still not working. Do I need to pivot? And that's one of the hardest decisions to make as an entrepreneur is, do I change things? Do I pivot? Do I quit this altogether? It's a very difficult decision to make. And so, it's very hard to stay motivated when nothing is working. I think it's a lot easier to stay motivated if something is working, even just a tiny little bit. Even just getting one sale is some light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think it's very hard when nothing is working and there's no sales, and you just got to be really self-motivated to get through that. Okay, Miguel is asking, should I focus on building my personal brand or just selling a product? Well, it depends on what kind of product or service you're doing. Now, again, if you're a loan officer, a realtor, or something like that, then building your personal brand is huge, right? I think especially for realtors, it's really important to be out there a little bit more so than loan officers, because we're a little bit more on the back end of things. But yeah, a salesperson like that, then building your personal brand. But if you're just building a business and selling a product, I'd be focusing on building the business's brand. And by doing that, I don't mean buying billboards for your business brand. I mean just advertising to get customers, getting yourself out there in ways where you can measure a direct return and get sales. Okay, the next question is from Rachel. Is dropshipping still a good idea, or is it too saturated? Well, I mean, dropshipping just means that you're selling something that you're not shipping out yourself, right? That somebody else is making and shipping out, and you're just essentially selling it. So you're just kind of a storefront / marketer. at that point, right? So if you're not good at advertising and marketing and know all the different ins and outs of ads and all that kind of stuff, it's probably not what you should be doing, because that's the whole deal, right? You're not running the business on the back end. You're not creating the product or service. You're not delivering the product or service. You're simply marketing and advertising the product or service. So if you're going to go into, if you're going to go into drop shipping, you better make sure that you know how to do that stuff. That's not something that you go into without knowing how to do that, thinking that somehow you're going to make a fortune, when the whole business of that model is who's the best at marketing and advertising to get people to buy this product or service that someone else is selling and delivering. Your entire job in that industry is just marketing and advertising. That's it. So are you good at marketing or advertising? If you are, finding something to sell with drop shipping is probably a good idea for you. And if you're not, then it's probably not a good idea. Okay. The next question is from Corey. How do you validate a business idea without spending money on a prototype? Ads, right? Or again, like I said, Sphere or whatever, just getting it in front of people. And spending money on a prototype, if it's a physical product, that's a little bit more difficult. But if it's something online, to where it's an online product or a service, the prototype is just a website. And so you have to be able to spend money. I mean, you could spend $30, $50, on a website. If you're not serious enough about what you're trying to do to spend $30 or $50 or $100 on a website, then just don't even start, right? It's just not going to happen. You're not actually committed to doing it. So from that perspective, a prototype for something online, super easy, should definitely be done super fast, super easy. Physical product is a lot different, but I would say try to do something. Try to get something at least drawn up on paper that they can see, maybe something on the website where they can kind of see the breakdown of it. I mean, just something more tangible than some numbers on a piece of paper. All right, we will do the last question here from Olivia. When should I reinvest profits versus paying myself? Well, for me, I always reinvest profits again and again and again until I'm able to scale up enough to start taking money off. And that was our biggest thing when we started our first business. All we did was reinvest every single dollar, reinvest until we're making, it wasn't until we were doing $500,000 a year to where we started even taking a little tiny salary. And then it wasn't until we were doing, like $2 million a year that we were taking actual real salaries and, still investing back into the company, right? Still spending 30, 40, 50,000 a month on ads and building new things, investing even more money into other things. So we're still constantly reinvesting, but we waited until we really could take out real money to take out real money. And sometimes that trips entrepreneurs up. They try to take out too much too early, and you just need to focus on reinvesting in yourself. You start to take out too much too early, and then that's all you're ever going to do, right? You start to take out 50 grand. You're not even making 50 grand a year, but you start taking out 50 grand a year. Now you don't have enough money for advertising stuff, so you're never going to get to be able to take out 250,000 per year like you can when you're doing 2 million a year. Now you can start taking 250 in salary and stuff like that, right? But you're never going to get to that point unless you keep reinvesting in yourself. I do really think that's key in building a business. All right, so just a reminder, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com to get the book that will help you start or grow your business. Again, if you want to be a little bit more hands-off and have my team handle it for you, we can actually start your whole business, your LLC, your logo, your website, your social media, and all that kind of stuff, and handle it all for you if you go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com. So if you want to do it yourself, grab the book at foundingwithoutfunding.com. It will help you do that. If you'd like to be a little bit more hands-on, go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com. And last little plug here, remember, if you'd like to join my team as a loan officer, we do have the best rates, the most programs, and the highest compensation in the industry. So whether you're already a licensed loan officer or not, we can help you get licensed to join the team. So if you want to become a loan officer and join the team, go to newmlo.com. That's newmlo.com, and we can bring you on the team. And again, if you're not licensed yet, we can help you get licensed. With that being said, we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, we will see you on the next episode.